Okay, let's dive into this. It's quite a story. Imagine this. A love marriage, March 5th, 2025. Seems idyllic, right?
Hmm.
But then, just weeks later, it completely shatters into this horrifying tragedy.
Yeah.
That's what we're unpacking today, the Uriah murder case. We're working mostly from news reports detailing, well, this young woman, Pragati, her love marriage to Dilip, and the unbelievable truth that came out after his death.
It's truly chilling.
Our goal here is really to explore these reports, try to understand the layers, the motivations, and just the sheer disturbing nature of it all.
And what strikes you immediately looking at those early reports is the contrast. Just 12 days in, March 17th, Pragati posts this happy video, celebrating her marriage to Dilip Singh Yadav.
Right, after a 3-year relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they'd apparently really worked to get their families on board, so you see this joy.
Yeah, they had to convince them.
But almost immediately, the reports hint at this darkness creeping in. It's incredibly unsettling how fast it turned.
It really is, like that happy picture just starts to warp. So fast forward just 2 days later, March 19th. Dilip, he's only 21, involved in the family business, something with hydra and cane. Seems like farming equipment, maybe.
Yeah, likely related to their sugarcane business.
Yeah.
A prosperous family, him and his 3 brothers.
So he's heading home from work in Bella Village. Standard stuff. He calls his brother Sandeep and Pragati too. Says he's about 27 kilometers out, maybe, 40, 50 minutes away from their home in Divyapur.
Just a normal call home after work. But then, he doesn't arrive. The family starts to worry. Naturally, calls aren't going through.
That slight worry must have just escalated, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And instead of Dilip walking in, they get a call from the Uriah police. Dilip's been found, injured, badly, and he's in the hospital. Imagine that shift from he's late to that.
Utterly devastating. Just hours before, he's fine on his way home. Now they're racing to the hospital, find him in critical condition.
And the first thought is probably an accident, right?
Yeah.
A terrible road accident.
Exactly. And the reports describe Pragati just completely distraught, crying constantly. Her family's trying to comfort her. They get her to the hospital, and seeing Dilip like that, she apparently just breaks down.
A picture of absolute grief. But then, 2 days later, March 21st, Dilip dies from his injuries.
And that's when the story takes another much darker turn.
Yes, because the postmortem report comes back, and it's not consistent with just an accident. Severe head injuries, yes, a skull fracture,
Yeah.
but also a gunshot wound to the back of the head.
Wow, okay. So this wasn't an accident, or even just a robbery gone wrong. This was deliberate, targeted.
Precisely. It changes the entire investigation. Suddenly it's murder.
And this is where the background becomes crucial, isn't it? We learn more about their relationship. Pragati was actually the sister-in-law of Dilip's older brother, Sandeep.
Right. They'd been involved for 3 years, and the family initially objected.
Yeah, apparently they didn't want 2 daughters-in-law from the same family. That's an interesting detail, that initial resistance.
It adds a layer, definitely. Even though they eventually gave in because the couple insisted. Yeah. And Pragati, apparently, won the in-laws over pretty quickly after the wedding.
Which makes her later involvement even harder to grasp. We also know she went to her parents' place on March 9th, just 4 days after the wedding, stayed a bit, Dilip celebrated Holi, and then he went back to work on the 19th, the day it happened.
So how was he actually found? The reports say 2 villagers saw him first, in a wheat field near Palia village.
In a field, not just by the road.
No, in a field. Apparently, they were scared at first, thought he might be dead, ran off, but came back with others. Then they called the police.
Okay.
Police arrive, find Dilip still alive, thankfully, and rush him to the hospital. And it was the phone ringing in his pocket that eventually led the police to contact his family.
And the doctors confirmed it, the head trauma and the gunshot.
Yes. Solidifying the police suspicion that this was a planned attack, a conspiracy. But the family, when questioned, they insisted Dilip had no enemies. They filed the FIR, the initial report, but had no suspects in mind.
Right. Which must have left the police wondering, where do we even start?
And that's where Operation Trinetra becomes key. This is the Uttar Pradesh government's CCTV network initiative.
Ah, the cameras.
Exactly. They started reviewing footage from around the time Dilip made that last call.
And they found something.
They did. Crucial footage. It shows Dilip on a bike, but he's not alone. There are 2 other individuals with him on the road, heading towards Pelia village.
Okay, so he wasn't attacked randomly on the road. He was with people. Who were they?
That became the focus.
Yeah.
And identification led to one of them being a man named Ramji Nagar.
Ramji Nagar. Does that name mean anything?
It does to the police. The reports describe him as a history sheeter, basically a known criminal with a record of serious offenses.
Oh, That's not good. That immediately points towards something sinister, doesn't it?
A huge red flag.
Yeah.
So Ramji Nagar is arrested and interrogated, and he confesses.
He admits it. What does he say?
He says, yes, he was involved, but he was hired, contracted to murder Dilip
Hired. By who?
by a man named Anurag Yadav.
Anurag Yadav. And the family. They knew him.
That's the shocking part. No, Dilip's family had never heard of Anurag Yadav.
So a complete stranger supposedly hired a known criminal to kill Dilip. Why? This makes no sense yet.
Exactly. Total mystery for the family. But based on Ramji's information, the police investigate Anurag Yadav, find him, and arrest him too.
Okay, so they have the alleged hitman and the guy who supposedly hired him. But the connection to Dilip is still missing. Until
the investigation circles back, incredibly, to Dilip's own home. While the family is still grieving, police are questioning people, piecing things together.
And then,
The most unbelievable twist, they arrest Pragati Yadav, Dilip's wife, for being part of the conspiracy to murder him.
his wife, the grieving widow, the one he had the love marriage with just days before.
The very same one. It's almost impossible to reconcile with the image of her distress at the hospital, the reports of their hard-won love story.
This is where it gets really dark. We have to look into Pragati's past, right? What could possibly motivate this?
Absolutely. Let's rewind to around 2020. Anurag Yadav, the man who allegedly hired the killer, was living near Pragati's family in a place called Fafund.
Okay.
And Anurag, according to the reports, was projecting this image of wealth. Branded clothes, fancy cars, talking about flying places, staying in nice hotels.
But it wasn't real.
Apparently not. It was all a facade. Funded by others, it seems. Reports suggest he didn't even own a bike, sometimes drove a tractor for cash. But he put on a good show.
And Pragati fell for this fake lifestyle.
It seems that way. And this is despite the fact that Pragati's family and Anurag's family were enemies. A long-standing feud over land. Bitter enemies.
Wow, so they hated each other's families, but she was drawn to his fake wealth.
Looks like it. They started communicating secretly, exchanged numbers, late-night calls, met up near Araya City, sometimes at a hotel near a Sai temple.
So this was a serious secret relationship.
Deep enough that Pragati apparently insisted Anurag change his name. His real name was Manoj Narayan, but she wanted him to be Anurag Yadav.
She made him change his name. Why?
The reports don't explicitly state why, but it's a significant detail. Maybe to distance him from his family, or perhaps she just preferred the name. Regardless, it shows a level of influence.
And the families obviously didn't approve of this relationship, given the feud.
Not at all. Major opposition.
Yeah.
Lots of fights between Pragati and her family. It got extreme. The one report mentions she even cut her wrist at one point to try and force them to agree to her marrying Anurag.
That's intense. So where does Dilip fit into this picture? Her obsession seems focused on Anurag.
Well, here's the potential link to motive. Pragati's older sister had married into a very wealthy millionaire family back in 2019.
Ah, so Pragati saw that lifestyle.
Exactly. She saw her sister's life, heard Anurag's promises of similar luxury, but perhaps she started to realize Anurag couldn't actually deliver it. He didn't have the real money.
Okay, I think I see where this might be going. It's grim.
It is. The theory suggested by the investigation is chilling. Around 2022, Pragati allegedly shifted her focus. She started targeting Dilip.
Her sister's brother-in-law, from the prosperous family.
Yes. She supposedly started befriending him, pretending to be in love with him, for 3 years.
3 years? Faking a relationship as part of a plan? That's incredibly calculated, deceptive on a whole other level.
It gets worse. She actually introduced Dilip to Anurag.
What? She introduced her boyfriend to her secret lover?
Apparently so. They became acquainted, followed each other on Instagram. Dilip even commented on Anurag's posts sometimes. He had absolutely no clue he was interacting with the man who would allegedly plot his murder alongside the woman pretending to love him.
This is unbelievable. So she plays his part, convinces Dilip she loves him, gets him to push for the marriage against his family's initial wishes.
All while, the reports allege, she was secretly planning his death with Anurag.
And that happy video she recorded, and a hotel on March 17th.
The timing is sinister, isn't it? According to the police theory, that visit wasn't just about making a happy reel. It was allegedly when she met Anurag to finalize the murder plan, just 2 days before it happened.
And the motive, simply the money.
That appears to be the core of it. Inherit Dilip's share of the family wealth, described as being worth crores, and then live that luxury life she craved, but with Anurag.
So how did they plan to actually carry it out? Anurag hired Ramji Nagar, right?
Yes, and Anurag apparently involved his cousin first, Dilip Yadav, who also had a criminal background. Dilip was the one who then contacted and hired his friend, Ramji Nagar.
For how much?
The contract was reportedly for 2 lakh. That's about, well, it
Wait,
depends on the exchange rate, but a significant sum. 1 lakh upfront, 1 lakh after the job was done.
And where did the upfront money come from? Anurag didn't have real money.
This is another disturbing detail. Pragati allegedly provided $70,000 from her Mudikai money.
Her wedding gifts, money given to her as a new bride.
Yes. And she even asked Dilip himself for 300 euros, supposedly adding it to the pot for the initial payment.
She asked the victim for money to pay his own killers. I have no words.
It's deeply unsettling. Anurag apparently gathered the remaining $30,000 to make up the 1 lakh.
So the conspirators are Pragati, Anurag, his cousin Dilip, the hitman Ramji Nagar, anyone else.
One more. Ramji Nagar's friend, Shivam Yadav, was also allegedly involved in the execution. So 5 people in total.
5 people plotting to kill this young man. And they waited for the right moment.
They waited for Dilip to be alone, vulnerable. That moment came on March 19th when he was driving back from Bella. Pragati knew his route, his timing.
And she told Anurag.
She allegedly informed Anurag that Dilip was on his way. Anurag, Ramji, Dilip, and Shivam then went to intercept him. Anurag pointed Dilip out, identified him for the others, and then left the scene.
So Anurag wasn't there for the actual attack.
Apparently not. The other 3, Ramji, Dilip, and Shivam, chased Dilip's vehicle, this Hydra machine. They flagged him down, pretending their car broke down.
And Dilip stopped to help.
Tragically, yes. He seems to have been a helpful person. Ramji and Dilip then convinced him to get on a bike with them, supposedly to show them where their car was. They drove him into that wheat field near Pelia village,
Where Shivam was waiting.
where Shivam was waiting on another bike. And once they were isolated in the field, before Dilip could likely even process what was happening, they attacked him.
How? What did they do?
They beat him severely, hit him repeatedly over the head with the butt of a gun, and then Dilip Yadav allegedly shot him once in the back of the head with a country-made pistol.
And they just left him there, thinking he was dead.
They fled, believing the job was done.
But he wasn't dead. Not immediately.
No. And the reports touch on this point why a gunshot to the head wasn't instantly fatal. It often is in movies, but reality can be different.
Right.
Especially with less powerful, less precise weapons like a country-made .315 bore pistol. It might not cause that immediate catastrophic brain damage needed for instant death, unlike, say, high-velocity military rounds. They even mention historical cases like Phineas Gage, who survived a metal rod going through his skull.
So the gunshot wasn't the actual cause of death right away.
It seems the combination of injuries was fatal. But his death 2 days later in the hospital was ultimately attributed to the severe head trauma from the beating, the skull fracture, the brain damage. The gunshot contributed, of course, but the beating itself caused devastating injury.
Unbelievably brutal. And the investigation, the CCTV, was key.
Absolutely crucial. It directly led to identifying Ramji Nagar. His arrest led to Anurag. And further investigation, likely phone records and other evidence, pointed to Pragati. So Ramji, Anurag, and Pragati were arrested relatively quickly.
But Dilip and Shivam, the other 2 involved in the attack, they got away initially.
Yes, they fled. Police put out alerts, announced to reward $25,000 on each.
Did they catch them?
They did. Their run didn't last long. On the night of March 27th, about a week after the murder, police intercepted them at a checkpoint. There was a shootout.
A shootout?
Yes. Both Dilip and Shivam were injured, shot in the legs during the exchange, and then apprehended. Police recovered weapons, ammo, a bike, phones, cash from them.
So all 5 are now in custody.
All 5, charged under serious sections of the Indian Penal Code, Section 302 for murder, 120B for criminal conspiracy, plus charges under the Arms Act for the illegal weapons.
And the potential penalties.
If convicted of murder, particularly with conspiracy, it could be the death penalty or life imprisonment. But as we always say, that's for the courts to decide. The legal process is ongoing.
Of course, we report what the sources say happened and the charges filed, not the final verdict.
And, cases like this, involving known criminals like Ramji Nagar being out and available for hire, sometimes raise broader questions about things like bail for repeat offenders. But that's a whole other complex issue.
It is. Sticking to this case, though, when you look at the alleged motives of Pragati and Anurag, it just seems so fundamentally about, what? Greed. Aspiration warped into something monstrous.
It really does seem to boil down to that. Pragati apparently captivated by a lifestyle she couldn't have, perhaps seeing Dilip as just an obstacle, or worse, a stepping stone. And Anurag wanting luxury without effort, willing to resort to violence.
It's love completely twisted into a transaction, a deadly one.
The betrayal is staggering, not just of Dilip, but of both families involved. Lives ruined, trust obliterated, all apparently for money and a lifestyle built on lies. It's a truly cautionary tale.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's just profoundly disturbing. We started with what looked like a love story and ended with calculated deception, brutal, greed-fueled violence, and a young life tragically cut short.
That contrast between the appearance, the wedding video, the supposed love, and the alleged reality of a cold-blooded murder plot is just jarring. It stays with you.
It really does. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About, well, the darker side of human desire, maybe, the lengths people might go to for status or wealth. It makes you wonder, how do you even begin to protect yourself from that kind of manipulation hiding behind affection?
It's a sobering question. This case is certainly a stark reminder that things aren't always what they seem, and the capacity for deceit and violence can hide beneath the most ordinary surfaces, shaking our fundamental trust in relationships.
A really heavy one today. Thanks for unpacking it with me.
Indeed, a very tragic story.